Right now is time for the latest edition of College Football Confidential with one of our favorite guys, John Talty from CBS Sports. Always doing the best in the business, always looking dapper as heck too, John. Great to have you on the show, my man. Your biggest storylines, man, just in terms of teams that have won the offseason. I'm excited because this team was on top of the transfer portal, a team that I think we're all familiar with here, LSU. It is a make or break year for Brian Kelly in Baton Rouge. And John, I think it was you who's kind of dangling the question out there. Hey, is missing out on Bryce Underwood the worst thing in the world? You're going to have to talk some LSU fans off a ledge with what they've done in the transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, let's start. It was a huge blow, right? And we all know that. I think everyone on the show is a believer of Bryce's talent, and I think that was a huge get for Michigan. But I think what we realize that of increasing importance in college football, and it's going to matter even more and more in the future with the rev share world, is it's finite amount of resources, right? Some schools feel like they have unlimited, but there is a finite amount. There will be, especially moving forward. And how you choose to use that money is going to be really important. And so losing Bryce Underwood, which the numbers were 8 to 10 million total package, maybe even more, all kinds of different numbers out there. That's a significant outlay of money. And by losing Bryce, I think what they were able to do is then be more aggressive this past transfer portal window, load up on talent across the board, getting some top wide receivers like Nick Anderson and Barry Brown, loaded up on offensive linemen. They got guys like Patrick Payton. I mean, they had, as you said, Coop, the top portal class, and I think that money helped in that department. And I think what I'm happy about is that, the past cycle or two, LSU has not been as aggressive as I think they should have been. Last year, if you guys remember, Brian Kelly kind of complaining about the price of talent, that they weren't going to spend $1 million on a defensive lineman. Well, they needed guys like that last year. They weren't able to get over the hump. And I think with the guys they brought in this past December, it's going to allow them to have a much better shot of competing in the SEC and living up to the expectations that that LSU fan base has.
Well, listen, John, missing out on Bryce Underwood, we can make this as good as it sounds, but it's never good when you miss out on a talent like that. I'm talking about Coop, and I think that this guy can change the trajectory of your program for the next 3 to 4 years. And
I believe you called him generational, Smoke.
Potential to be a generational talent. But I get it. It's a win-now situation that BK's in down there in Baton Rouge, and he has Garrett Nussmeier to go ahead and lead that offense. So when you look at it, it's really more of what are we looking for the next 2 years from now of what that team is looking like. And he's just spending his money saying, you know what, I'm going to cash in on my future today and worry about tomorrow and what the future program looks like another time.
Hey, John, I want to ask you a question, and maybe this is something that I'm just kind of working up in my mind a little bit, but I look at critical year fours for Brian Kelly, for Lincoln Riley out west, and you think about these programs that even though Brian Kelly has won 29 games in his first 3 years, the standard there in Baton Rouge is a little bit higher. The seat is starting to warm up a little bit more in L.A. Do you feel like these programs and ADs now feel like it's a lot easier to correct course now with NIL and the transfer portal and say, you know what, 1 year like LSU has done this year in the transfer portal, we're going to make a concerted effort, and on the short term, we're going to get things back on track, and long term, things will kind of even out as we go as well?
Yeah, I think it's a blessing and a curse because I think that there is that easy fix potentially available to you. But the downside is that we've seen programs do it, so there's more pressure on people, right? I think we've seen teams take big jumps in year two where that causes other fan bases and ADs and others, well, why aren't we doing that here? So the fact that we're talking about year four with Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley speaks to the amount of money invested in them and the prominence that both of them had before they took their jobs. Because now I think we're seeing year two, year three, where that pressure is really cranking up. I think we're seeing that some in Auburn right now, a few frees too, where the portal class that they just added also felt like an all-in, we have to win this year. So I think with BK and with Lincoln, you're seeing that potential where it's, let's take a big run short term. We have to be more successful here. And to Smoke's point earlier, it's how you use your money. Maybe Bryce would have cost $2 million. That $2 million most likely, unless something terrible happened to Garrett Nussmeier, was going to be sitting on your bench this year. So the long-term value was there, short-term maybe not. Instead, you're using that $2 million or so to deploy for short-term, let's win this year. And I think that's where you're going to see teams strategize of, can we go for it this year, whether out of desperation because they've had a bad year the year before, or, hey, maybe we're 2 pieces away from really competing for a national championship. Let's pour in that extra money for the short term, and we'll worry about the long term next year. And you see some teams that have had success doing that the last couple of years.
The short term investment seems more like a stabilizing agent. And if you can master the short term, and then that helps out the long term as well. I mean, you look at LSU, I think they've taken 16 transfers. They completely remade their secondary, a couple new starters on the offensive line. They've gone for it at the receiver position as well. And, you know, you think at the end of the cycle, the whole conversation was losing Bryce Underwood. The sky is falling. Now LSU, with what they've done in the transfer portal, has gone from a bubble team on the playoffs to now a team that you would expect to be in. So that's going to be fascinating as well. John, a team that's maybe on a different side of the coin that has had success is Penn State. They're one game away from being in the national title. They fall short of that as well. You listed them as another team that's done some good things this offseason. Why is it that you like what James Franklin and the Nittany Lions have done?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start here. I've admittedly been skeptical of James Franklin in the past. You know, we all know the stats against top 10 teams. I felt like against Notre Dame was such a great opportunity for them to make the national championship, and felt like they kind of blew it. So let me start there. I've been negative at times about him in the past, but what I think we've seen them have a lot of success with is twofold. One, going out and getting a guy like Jim Knowles, I think was a really strong hire. Stealing him from Ohio State, coming off a national championship, get interest from other programs, including Oklahoma State. That's a big hire, a great replacement, I think, for Tom Allen. That's part of it. The other piece is just the retention, you know, having guys like Drew Allard come back, having guys like Nick Singleton come back. That's, I think, allows them to have, you know, probably top 5 or so level of talent returning this year. And I think where you see the path for success of Penn State is similar to what we've seen from the last 2 national championships at Michigan, Ohio State. Both of them had this kind of last dance type feel where we're going to spend extra money to retain, get guys to come back rather than going to the NFL. Again, maybe we spend, you know, a little more than we typically would to get that extra piece or two. Still think Penn State needs a wide receiver, but let's try to get as much of the talent to come back and make one big run at trying to win it all. Michigan did it. We saw them take a step back this past year. Ohio State worked for them. I think they might take a little step back too, though I'm really bullish about what Julian Sain and Jeremiah Smith can do together. But Penn State feels like they've ramped up to this moment where they're all in this year. They're doing as much as they can resource-wise to try to win it all. And then next year, because they're so senior heavy, they'll probably take a step back. And that just seems to be kind of the way things are working right now in college football.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, Coop. And what we got to think about is what's won the last couple of years. Michigan, veteran team. Ohio State last year, John, you touched on it, another veteran team. So all Penn State is doing is what most GMs and guys in the personnel offices are doing. They're saying, you know what? The best thing that we need to do is just retain our team. Roster retention is at height. And when you have guys that can be possible 5th or 6th round draft picks, what you do is you pay those guys now. Potential first round, not first round money, but NFL rookie salary cap money, which is $500,000 to $600,000. And if you're doing that right now, what you're doing is saying, I'm going to take this team that I just had that finished up in the semifinals, and we're going to bring it back and run it one more year, get 2 years now with the offensive coordinator, Andy Kownecki, with Drew Allard, and saying, where can we go with this offense? Because I do believe that he's an NFL-type quarterback with NFL-type running backs, and that offensive line just got better.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, is where you put your resources. And I think that if you're not a very good team right now, again, you go kind of the let's go heavy to try to get better, or let's invest on younger guys. If you're a new coach, you can invest in putting more of your resources to the younger talent that you're going to grow over the next 2-3 years. Penn State, veteran team, win now. And I think that's what I think more and more of the playbook is going to be. I think and we've talked about this in the past, what Alabama and Georgia and those other programs used to do where they're just stockpiling talent year over year. It's just hard to do that now. Retention costs are too high. There's too many other programs that are promising starting spots and more money. And so it feels like the days of a team, dominating year to year are going to be harder and harder to come by. And again, maybe it's more you're ramping up for every 2 years you have a real shot or something close to that. It feels like it's very hard year after year to be either winning or in that championship game just because of how many other teams are investing money, how much money has flooded the market, all those different factors. Again, I think Michigan's a great example of that. And then to tie it all together, what we were talking about earlier, Michigan has a down year. What do? They go out and get Bryce Underwood because now they have this money and they want to take a big swing. And so you're going to see teams kind of ramp up and ramp down. Hey, we might not have the horses to really win this year. Let's save some of our money. And then next year, when we have more of a veteran team, let's go out and buy, bigger and better players to be ready to compete, knowing that this year maybe we don't have that type of team to really compete at that level.
Yeah, that's showing up in the portal too. I mean, you think about it this year, we're a little bit more conservative with the grading, but you think about the players at the top, Isaiah World, Damon Wilson, we only had 2 5-stars. And what's interesting with college football now with the 12-team playoff, I don't think you necessarily know when your window is going to be. Like if you were to have an honest conversation with James Franklin last year, would he have said, hey, we're going to be 1 game away from the national championship? Maybe he would have said that, but he was probably saying, you know what, 2025 is our year. We got all our guys coming back. We had the returning production. The point being here, and I kind of see this with Florida. Florida has gone the retention route. They weren't really active in the portal. That's okay, and we'll see how that pans out. But when you have a quarterback like a DJ Lagway or a quarterback like a Drew Aller, potential first-round draft choices, you have a very limited window. You're talking about 3 to 4 years here. So why not surround them with all the talent possible to give them everything that they need to win a national championship? And John, you brought it up, you slipped it in there earlier in the show, but I was just kind of thinking, like, has Penn State done enough at receiver? And I get it. I think the response is going to be Kyron Ware-Hudson. We got the receiver from Troy. I don't know. That's my big question mark. And you're losing Tyler Warren as well. And I'm bullish on some of the young tight ends and Luke Reynolds. And obviously you got Singleton and Katron Allen coming back. But shoot, man, try to make this as easy as possible.
Well, John Coop, I'm going to tell you what James is probably saying in his back. I got 2 of the best running backs. My quarterback is an NFL type of talent. All I need is just a couple of players on the outside, not to drop the ball, John, but to catch the ball. And we can manufacture plays and opportunities for us to score and win in a national championship type of setting.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there, Smoke. And I'm going to go back to what Coop said. I still feel like there's another missing piece, and that I feel like this past year's team, if they had, Keandre Lambert-Smith, who ended up going to Auburn, is that missing piece that maybe gets them over the hump? I mean, they're in such a great position that, again, just me selfishly not involved at Penn State, would just like to see them go out and get a spring receiver. I just think that you're going to need that little bit extra so teams aren't loading up too much to stop it. But I love what they have coming back. And again, they're one of the teams that I feel like has had one of the best off seasons out of anybody.
It's a good to great conversation. It's a good place to be in, to be having that conversation as well. John Talty, we appreciate you, man, as always. Guys, just a reminder, you can find John Talty's work at cbssports.com. You can also find his book, The Price, What It Takes to Win in College Football's Era of Chaos.